Listen, good evening, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world tonight. If you're watching this live or if you're watching this on replay, thank you for joining us. My name is Demetrius Frazier here at Resist Booksellers, and I am super excited. Hopefully, I'm going to be excited at the end too, because we're going to talk about some good stuff. But I'm super excited about having this chat here with author, expert, therapist, uh, just all around good person, Jor-El Caraballo. I think you're going to find this conversation to be enlightening, whether you're a black man or not. And I think you'll find some of the things that are in here in this conversation very helpful. So, Jor-El, let me start out by saying welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. I know it may be a little cold where you are, but
Just a
how are
little
you tonight?
bit. Just a little bit.
Just a little
Um,
bit.
I'm based in New York City, and our high has been around 20 degrees, and it's that way for the entire week. So we're struggling a little bit, but it's okay. Getting through it.
And I'm sure the plows made sure to not pile up the snow anywhere on the sidewalks,
Of
correct?
course, it's all perfect and wonderful and easy to walk around.
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I love watching the videos this time of year where they show like some foreign country that perfectly lifts up all the snow and takes it away. And like, I lived in New York most of my childhood. They never did that. It was always piled up next to the
Mm-hmm.
Honda Civic.
100%. The cars are just now emerging from
Yeah,
the
yeah.
snowfall. So every once in a while, you see someone sort of chomping away at it. Yeah.
Yep, they forgot they had one because they
Hmm.
hadn't seen it in so long. So,
Hmm.
we are here to discuss one of your works. And for those, yes, I do have notes. Mindful Meditations for Black Men, Restorative Practices to Soothe Mind, Body, and Spirit. But I want to make sure we know and understand that Jor-El's not new to this. Jor-El has done some other works, and one that we have here in stores, Self-Care for Black Men, 100 Ways to Heal and Liberate. There's the Shadow Work deck. There's all types of stuff, and we'll get into all of that. So let me start with the beginning, Jor-El. I won't say take me back to the beginning because that's baby, but take me back to like how you got into this work in the first place and what made you so excited about potentially working in this field.
Yeah. I'm like kind of trying to give like Cliff Notes version of how I got here. Because I'm not a Ute anymore. So it's been a little while. Um, I was always that kid who was very curious about things and about people. And so always curious and very observant. But it wasn't until I think like last year of high school that I took a general psychology course through dual enrollment. And that sort of cemented for me that like, oh, you can be professionally interested and curious about people. And so I had some background of like healthcare in my family. So I kind of understood that sort of dynamic of like supporting people who weren't, of your own family. And so there was some value there that brought me to the space of psychology. But it was really this idea of being creative, being myself, supporting people, making a living, and just like being a good citizen of the world that sort of really cemented that like, okay, this is how I'm going to do this. This is how I'm going to work and make a living. And did that for a while before writing became a real formal part of my work or like an extension of it. And even though I was always interested in writing, I hadn't really considered that it could be a real career for me. And yeah, the past few years, I just have been like, I've been really grateful for what's come out of it and be able to have more conversations with more people about the kinds of things I'm interested in talking about. So I feel very fortunate to be able to do the work that I do and have conversations like this.
And the slightly unfortunate part is there's always something for us to work on mentally, right? And
Mhm.
mindfully. I think the current climate seems to be, I don't know if it's triggering, I don't know if it's adding to the weight that people are carrying around, specifically men in this case. Do you think this current environment impacts or makes things worse or better, or It forces people to go to counseling or get therapy or be more mindful. How would you say the current environment that we're in, that we're seeing on TV and in our communities, has affected the work that you're doing?
Yeah. What's happening in our country right now is like horrific. And so I talk to people, clients regularly about how that's impacting them, um, how they're dealing with that, how we sort of work within what resources we have access to take care of ourselves, take care of our mental health. But I'll also say that like the landscape has totally changed even from 2020, right? When COVID hit and just like obviously worldwide pandemic, everyone's trying to figure out what we're supposed to do, um, and how we make it through that. And I think since then, it's just been like an onslaught of like these larger things that have impacted our mental health and how we're able to take care of ourselves. The economy is struggling. You have like this very state-sanctioned violence that we're witnessing every day. And all of those things we're experiencing because of social media, because of the internet, um, like an immeasurable amount of times, right? Because I was just talking to someone the other day where I said, obviously we have to be mindful of the time we spend online, but you may have good intentions of like, oh, I just want to check this one thing. I want to see what my friend posted or whatever. But I was like, okay, cool. But also keep in mind that the way that these algorithms are set up, you get that one thing from your friend, but right below it, you might see an image, you might see a video, you might see someone's really hot, awful take about something, right? And then if you linger on that, that's clocking that time for that sort of content, and it just keeps feeding it. And so with that, we're exposed so much to these really difficult things. So it's so necessary to have some practices, have some structure to how you look after yourself, how you look after your people. And so my hope is that with this book, with anything that I create, that it gives people that space to really be with themselves better.
And I think you hit on a good point. I go on the internet all the time. I go on social media all the time. And unfortunately, sometimes I do that like first thing in the morning. So this is like starting my day off with whatever the feed feeds me. And so I think there's a point somewhere very early in your book that I think would be really important for people to understand and to know and to think through. And you use this term mindful. I know it's not a complicated term, but you defined it. And so I think it's really important for folks as they're reading this book. I hope you take this book and read it and discover what this book can do to help you. But it defines mindfulness, and I want to use that as a context for our next setup here. It says to be mindful means to exist in connection with the present moment. It means to connect with the sense of self and the body, to center your focus on the present moment to the exclusion of other life circumstances that may otherwise be a part of your world. And so for most of us, you may scroll, we may feel something, and then we just kind of combine and layer stuff on there. And unfortunately, sometimes we kind of roll through with this burden and just not paying attention to it or even understanding what it's doing to us. Do you think social media, do you think the doom scroll, do you think the binge watching is a numbing effect to where we just don't even pay attention to the things that are happening within our psyche and with our mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, like being mindful, right, is really about having this sort of dual consciousness, right? So you're having this moment where you're experiencing something. So it's like you, the person who's experiencing it, but then you also have the you that's also noticing that you experience it and what that experience is like for you, right? And so it's like practicing that watching and noticing. And I don't think it's just social media, though. I think that we're set up in our world now to move and to always be moving, to always be generating, creating, making money, productivity. And that takes away our ability to be mindful because we're just moving past it. Like, as you said, just like when we're scrolling, right? You can see something And half the time, if not more, you may not even actually clock it, like what it actually felt like for you to engage with that thing. And I think this is why that slowing down and being mindful is so important, is because the really unfortunate reality about all that is, whether you consciously acknowledge it or not, your brain is still processing all of the information you just experienced. So you may say, oh, I didn't really look at it, but your brain did actually. And that half a second that maybe you scrolled by, it caught something, right? Because our brains do that every day, all the time, no matter what. It's processing every bit of information that's accessible to our senses. You're just not conscious of all of it in every moment, because that's not necessary, right? Our brain does those shortcuts of, like, when you're walking outside, right, you're just looking where you're walking, but your ears are still processing everything that's around you 3D, right? Your periphery is also clocking if there's a person there. You may not consciously be aware, oh, I need to watch out for that person, but they're still there, right? Your brain recognizes that. So that's happening to us online, right? And so we're getting all that information. So even if you're not like steadily watching these horrific videos, if it's on the timeline, your brain is still tracking it. It's recognizing, oh, that's not a good thing, or that's hard, that's terrible, that's whatever. And so being able to slow down and say, what's just happened to me? What's just happened within me? And we need to give ourselves moments to acknowledge and like really tune into that. And that's what mindfulness is to me.
There's two parts in there. One, I want to get to it because I need some more time to process what you had said about it. Because there's a part in this book, I'm going to give everybody a helpful thought. As you're reading this book, there's going to be some moments in there, this book, where it's going to be, as the pastor would say, has met you on your row, and is dealing with some things that you're dealing with. We're going to get to that in a second. But there is that thing in social media where, like, sometimes the content that's flowing in is really harmful and dangerous, and you just kind of flash forward. And one of the parts that is specific to Black men and specific to me is this constant posting of Black men don't read, or Black men can't read, or Black men will never read, whatever those comments are. And if you flash through them, those things just drop in your bank, right? And I want to say, I've heard more and more Black men say they've heard that, seen that, and they just can't figure out, like, where that voice came from. And I'm wondering if it came from not being mindful of these little moments that's happening as they're flowing through social media, the internet, life. It could be outside, it could be in a barbershop. And so that's a great point. But I want to get to something you just hit on. And this is specifically for Black men. And you said in particular, there's so much pressure in squeezing the most out of every moment and every opportunity for efficiency's sake. Let's unpack that a little bit, because Black men specifically, I can't speak to white men or any other man, Black men specifically are kind of judged on their productivity, their success, their achievements, and their work and ethic. How hard has that been to unpack or to deal with in your work, either as a writer or as in practice?
Yeah. I write about that specifically because I think one of the things I've noticed is that there are so many things that we experience as Black men that we don't acknowledge ourselves or call out and connect with other people on, right? And pressure is one of them. It's interesting because there's some conversations that happen online or in real life about, like, I need to get that money, I need to do this, blah, blah, blah. So there's a level at which we talk about it, that it exists, but there's another level in which we don't acknowledge the impact of that, right? And so I wanted to talk about and highlight that dynamic of what we may be experiencing is a lot of pressure to get the most out of whatever we're doing in whatever moment, or actually at every moment, right? That no matter what I'm doing, I need to try to be the best at it. I need to make sure that I do it. I need to make sure I get the best out of it. I need to make the most money out of it. I need to do it as quickly as possible so I can get to the next thing to get even more. right? And I think a lot of that is informed by the conversations we have about Black men culturally, right? Just like we had this, you're just saying about this stereotype that Black men don't read, right? There's also long been a stereotype of like a deadbeat Black man or someone who's lazy. And as much as we'd like to say that we've like moved past that and we're better, that still lives within us, because that conditioning may be hundreds of years old. Of you need to work more to get more, to be more. And so understanding that that dynamic is sometimes what propels us to work too much or work past our limits or not recognize that we have limits. And so a lot of my work, especially in, you know, clients that I work with sometimes, is about saying like, hands up, you do realize you're a human, right? Humans need sleep. Humans need
Right.
rest.
It's
They need
okay to
food.
rest.
They need food.
Put your
So
feet
like,
up a little bit, you know.
right. So you telling me that like you had this great work day in which you worked for 11 hours, but you didn't eat. That's not cute. I get it. I
Oh
get
man.
it. But also, you're a human being. Where are you taking care of your humanness? You know? And so that's why I want to talk about these sorts of things in this book.
I told y'all he already in my role. I don't know what he's gonna be in yours, but listen, it happens, right?
It
And you get to
does.
where the goal becomes the only motivator, not being healthy, not being restful, not getting the best out of your work. It's just keep moving, and keep being productive, and
Mhm.
so much so to your own detriment. And even when, and I'm not speaking about anyone else. I'm just speaking about myself. Even when the signs are showing you that you are doing too much or you're doing the things that are not helpful to you, you still persevere because it's the only way it's going to happen, or I can't stop now, or whatever catchphrase you want to put in there. We still keep pushing towards that. And I wonder if it's those little voices that's been implanted that's keep fueling this, keep going, or something else external.
Mhm.
I would love to keep going on that because I feel like I'm getting a free session tonight. Um, but I think one of the things that I get as a question with your first book,
Mm.
because we do, I don't know if anybody knows, we sell Black literature here. We center in Black authors as well. And so we have a book called Self Care for Black Men, and we have a book called Self Care for Black Women, and we have all of those. And the question I get all the time is, why so much focus on Black males? Why so much focus on Black women? Can you speak to the specific need and urgency to focusing on Black males, specifically in your work, or even Black people in general, that would make it where this is the obvious choice for us to really hone in on working with these individuals?
Mm. So many thoughts about this. Um,
Other
First
than
off,
the go get a white book somewhere else, but
yeah,
I'll say that, not you.
yeah. First of all, why not? That's my first reaction. Why not? Um, my second reaction is part of the reason why I wanted to create a series that focused on Black men and wellness and mental health is because when I go online as a Black man, I think about the content that is that's trying to be pushed towards me, right? About like who I should be, what I should do, what I should be thinking about, what I should focus on. Very rarely is that this sort of holistic health and wellness content. Now, I know some of y'all are going to feel a way about me saying this, but I need you to stay with me for a second because we get some information that purports itself as health and wellness, but what it's actually sort of focusing on is aesthetics, desirability for partnership, um, and like a certain lifestyle that is well received online. But a lot of those things have nothing to do with health and wellness. They just have to do with the appearance of it, right? And so, yeah, I just think about even just thinking of something as simple as like the fitness related content, there's so many Black male fitness creators and so few, Black male mental health creators. Why is that? That says something. But when you think about other communities, you think about like the white community. Almost every therapist online is like a white woman. There's like a specific image that we think of when we think of like a therapist, right? And it looks like that. And so I wanted to make sure to create something, being the person that I am, looking how I look, talking how I talk, and say, we need to be having these conversations, and we need to be having them now, because enough. Like, when do we actually start giving ourselves permission to be full people who can feel all our feelings, not be shamed for it, not be judged for it, who can get the resources that we need to take care of ourselves and take care of our brothers, our sisters, our families, right? And not be ashamed of that. Can we finally settle this debate between, can you have religion and have therapy or take medication? Why can't we all have space for all of that? And I wanted to be a positive force in contributing to, we get to talk about these things too. We need to talk about these things too, because no one else is going to give it to us.
Lord, I wasn't gonna go there, but this where mutually exclusive religion and mental health, we've been dealing with that specifically in the Black community for a very long time.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I don't think we remember what prayer is and what being in the prayer closet we used to do. Those were set away moments to just be mindful and thoughtful about the same thing. We could actually probably use most of the definition of mindfulness that you gave here and call it prayer, right? I mean, but we're not going to judge tonight. We're going to leave it alone.
Right.
So if that's the case, if you were to restart our influencer network and say, hey, I'm going to build an army. I want an army of mental health influencers. What are the couple characteristics you would want them to hone in on? Maybe there's the big hitters, if you were Pareto, the issues that we have as Black men specifically.
I would say in terms of issues, I think I would want people to focus on like mood conditions, or just even, actually, I'll even back up before that. How emotions, feelings, just exist and don't have to be fixed. I'll say we'd really have to start there, because I will tell you, I have a lot of conversations, and this is not just with Black men, but a lot of different clients, but definitely Black men, about how we're so used to judging our feelings or judging the intensity of our feelings when we have no control over how we feel.
Right.
Feelings are spontaneous. They happen as a result of something, but we don't have control over them. What we have control over is our behavior, what we do with those feelings, what we allow ourselves to do or not do. And so I think first and foremost, sort of taking away the shame or the miseducation about what feelings are and what they're supposed to be in our lives.
Probably can. I think that's enough content right there. We could, many of us could have million-follower accounts by just dealing with those points, right?
Sure.
And I think it's also helpful that if that's the case, and we made the same suggestion with the self-care for Black women, was that it's also helpful if the partners read it. And then maybe you can have a better understanding of some of the things that other people in your life are dealing with. And in that case, I can tell you, for example, for me, sometimes I'm like frustrated and angry, but for me, the frustration and angry just needs to happen. It just needed to flow. It just needs to let it out and not be analyzed and talked about as much, so much. Where did it come from? Why are you feeling frustrated? That actually makes me more frustrated. It just elevates the frustration.
Right.
So I think that's a great point. And so some of those things that you're seeing in the practice could also, be helped out by some of the mindful practices you have in the book. There's one other thing in there. We could probably talk about this for 30 minutes
Mm,
about redefining masculinity.
here we go.
I don't even know where to start with this
That's
one.
well, listen, I was writing it and I was like, what's the lane here? Because there's
Right.
so much
Because
we could do.
this is a wide open Atlanta highway. Because
Yes.
there's so many places you can go here,
Mhm.
and I thought you handled enough of it without making it okay. This could be a third and fourth book, right? It could be way more than what you had there. But where do you see masculinity or our current like operational definition of masculinity colliding with our ability to have mindful practices?
Mm. I think there are a few tenets of the sort of like conventional masculinity that, are these rules about how we're supposed to govern ourselves, right, in order to be real men. And one of them is um, being able to withstand challenges. And just like you and I were talking about a little while ago, when we think about that, it's often withstand means you just keep going, you just keep plowing through whatever that challenge is. And that's the measure of being a man, being successful. And so I understand that in writing something like this, there's an inherent challenge to that idea. When I say, can you just sit for a second? Can you just breathe for 30 seconds? That's already a challenge. I know that, right? And I think there's so much about like thinking about mindfulness that is a hurdle for a lot of people and Black men specifically because it doesn't look like anything, right? Because it's internal, it's paying attention to your experience, it's maybe reflecting on specific ideas, but we don't feel like we're doing something because we're not moving, we're not creating, we're not making, right? And I just want to remind everyone that like the work that you are doing internally when you maybe reflect on the themes in this book, when you give yourself 30 seconds, a minute just to breathe, um, that is life-changing work. It is productive. You are taking care of yourself in those moments, and you're giving yourself the message every time you do it that taking care of yourself is worth it and valuable to you, which is saying to yourself, I'm valuable. My experience is valuable as it is. And those ideas, I think, challenge our very notions of masculinity, of productivity, of being a provider, of being a good worker. And I think we got to challenge those because too many of us are dealing with health issues, dying of premature death at these early ages. There's so much value in developing like some sort of structure or practice of being with yourself, and like the benefits are just endless. So
And I try to find those moments, and I think I'm getting better at it, but not great, not yet.
mm,
I think I'm getting there. I'm almost there.
mm,
It's just like finding 2 minutes, and in one, sometimes I'll just like take a breath. My
yeah,
watch, it has little things on there that
mm,
says, "Hey, take a mindful moment," right?
mm,
And I always thought it was cheesy because it's Apple, but
yeah.
it actually is just centering in on something other than what's happening in my day.
Can
And in
can
this
I?
case, go ahead.
I was just say, can I offer something because I think this is also fundamentally something I try to communicate in the book, but I'm not sure how it came off.
Hmm.
We can do anything mindfully. So it's not just this separate thing that we do.
Hmm.
It could be the breath, right? And I'll offer this because it's a thing I used to hate doing that I hate less because I do it mindfully.
Yeah, yeah.
You can wash dishes mindfully.
Okay. Walk
So
us through
yeah,
how
yeah,
what
yeah.
that means.
Yeah. So it's like this idea of being present in the experience fully, not just
Hmm.
washing dishes because you have to wash the dishes, but as you're washing the dishes, you are noticing the scent of the dish soap.
Ah,
You're paying
okay.
attention to the temperature of the water as you put your hands in. You're noticing how your muscles are working as you're scrubbing this plate or this pot or whatever. You're feeling the water on your hands, or, as you're rinsing that dish and putting it in the drainer. You're noticing the water fall from that dish through the drainer and back into the sink. All those are those same moments, right? But while you're doing something that you have to do otherwise. And it's just about being fully immersed in that moment. And even doing that lowers your blood pressure, helps you feel less stressed, helps clear mental fog. You can do anything mindfully.
And noticing the little chips on the plate, because
You're less
I have
likely to
that
break the
also.
glass when
So
you're being
what happened
mindful.
here, right?
Mhm.
That may make sense from like even from exercise, right? If you're working out with weights, they typically tell you be mindful of where your arms are, your back arch, things like that. And maybe that's why that's so helpful,
Yep.
just to work. I mean, other than the physical piece of it.
Right. That's the mental part of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, I wish, I was saying I have like these moments, right? I'll stop, before I come in the house. Just take my 3 minutes, right? Am I bringing anything home with me,
Mm.
right? And so I'm just thinking through like how I feel in this moment right now. So a lot of times when I'm super stressed out, I get the little hunch, right? I don't even know that this is tight, right? And then until I like, oh wait, how long about I've been holding that, right? I'll be gritting my teeth, and so I'm just like walking through my body and just saying like, okay, maybe you're carrying something here, and I don't know what that is. I did have that bad call, and it's still sitting with me. All right, at least
Hmm.
I'm noticing that those things are affecting me, and that I'm not trying to solve it, not trying to eliminate it. I'm just trying to notice it and be mindful of that it's there. So
Hmm.
I think those are, really good tips. I didn't even think about the being mindful while washing dishes. Most of us try to just get through that practice and get out, right?
Hmm.
So I'm sure there's a lot of other things that could be the same way. Gardening, for
Hmm.
example. Uh, Heck, might even be folding clothes, right? And whatever it takes to get to that point.
Yeah.
Um, I want to help some men out there. Um, we know from our store. For those of you who've been here, this is a peaceful place. We don't have a lot of extra things happening here. What we want is to try to make it a sanctuary. And so what we ask for is for folks to be, mindful of other people being here. But I do get brothers who come in and say, look, I got a lot going on. I'm not feeling great. And then they'll see books like yours and say, I don't even know where to start. Should I get a therapist? Do I need a therapist? Whatever. I'm going to give you a person. I'm going to play role play here.
Okay.
I am a guy who just came in and said, I'm feeling all of it. I don't know what's going on. I feel overwhelmed. I don't feel like I'm doing anything right, whatever. And they at least have in their mind that they need something. Where would you point that young person, that man, that adult, doesn't matter. Where would you point them to start to get started on either working on their self-care, their mental health, or having a mindful practice?
Mhm. I think that the first thing I would say is just that I see you, and all of what you just said is completely valid. Like, okay, okay, right? That's where you're at. That's completely valid. There's a lot of stuff going on in the greater world. I don't know you personally. I don't know what you're exactly going through in this moment because you haven't told me yet, but I get it. And I always tell people, if you're new to sort of like taking care of yourself, doing self-care, whatever, looking into resources, the first step is like the most important step, and that step can be small. It probably has to be small, right? And so I think it's important to understand that when we're trying to do something, we're trying to better ourselves, sometimes we feel the pressure to go full throttle, but that also um, really gets in our way, right? And so this is part of the reason why I started writing, is because I wanted to be able to give someone a book that felt accessible for them, that was in language that they can understand. And they said, all right, even if I just spend 5 minutes with this thing, I'm getting something. I'm feeling seen. I'm getting a particular message. I'm learning like a new idea. And that first moment can be the first step of many other moments that help you build the whole ecosystem you need to feel healthier, to feel better, to be more in control of your life, to be more intentional and value driven. It just starts with starting. And so if that means picking up one of my books and you even read the first page in store and say, if it gives you a little something, you're like, all right, I guess this could work, take a chance. Take a chance on it, try and read an entry, and then take it from there. You never know what will happen once you just start.
Yeah, and that's an excellent place to kind of let them know that they are seen. Because I wonder how many of those men who ask that question don't feel seen, right? I'm reading this, and you got chapters in here where it seems like you could have just wrote my name on the top, things that I'm struggling with, things that I'm trying to work on, things that I understand are challenges but haven't figured out a way to even start. I wonder how many men are like not feeling heard, seen. They don't have any models to identify with. I'm having the same struggle as this person here. Maybe we can talk and maybe we can find some resources. How many of them are going through those same challenges? We have some young brothers who came in. I won't give their name because they didn't give me permission to do so. But one or two of them said, hey, I see the self-care for Black men. Let's all read it as a group. And one of them chimed in and said, yeah, because I opened the book up randomly to a chapter and I need help with that. And I'm sitting here, of course, I got to not be the nosy bookseller.
Mm-hmm. Self-control.
Like, ooh, this is getting good. But this is what we want, right? We want that dialogue. Because it was a group of 4, maybe 5 of them who really said, hey, let's do this together. And maybe that's part of the start, right? One, those guys didn't judge him for what he said that he was struggling with, so that's good. And then 2, they said, all right, let's do it together, and we can kind of learn together. So I'm hoping those brothers see this video. I told them that we'd be live, and I hope they watch it and hope they have a good session and come back and tell us how that went.
Yeah.
I would, this masculinity part, for sure, seems like it's an ongoing challenge. And I wonder how long we'll get into this part. Is this something that we could do differently with our children to help them through this and redefining that? I talked off camera about my sons. I have 3 sons, and all of them are different. But my youngest son, if he was behaving like he's behaving now as an adult, he would say, oh, he's soft, right? And those things come up. And I wonder how long we're gonna get through those practices. I'm not asking you to be a storyteller, a fortune teller there, but we've been dealing with this masculinity question for so long. Patriarchal systems, how do we get past that if these are the things that we need to do to be better to ourselves?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was that soft boy. And so part of my work has been and continues to be allowing myself to be that visibly. So when you talk about there are entries here that like could have had my name on it, I'm like, yeah, mine too. We're all still in process, right? And so for me, I've always been like a sensitive creature. I feel a lot. And I like cute things that I'm not supposed to like.
Right.
I have a tiny dog who's adorable, but I'm supposed to have like a pit bull or German
Oh
Shepherd.
yeah, Cane Corso.
Cane Corso, yeah,
You
at
gotta
least.
have one.
Right. Right. And so part of it, I think, is like for me, people like me, to be able to just say those things. Here we are. I get to be that, right? And show other people that it's okay to be that, because that is, we have a range of personality traits, of sensitivity levels, of all this stuff, because we're human beings. So all this stuff that we're telling ourselves about who we are, who we're supposed to be, a lot of it is just contrived and it's lies. So we just keep performing it. And so when I think about redefining masculinity, and I hope this came through in the book, it's about giving ourselves permission just to ask the questions of ourselves. What feels right for me? What feels true for me in how I see manhood, how I see Black masculinity? Are the messages I've been told right for me? Do they still make sense? Or are they some of those same narrow, controlling conditions that have just been regurgitated over and over and over again? And I say, let's open it up and just ask the question and land where you feel like is really right for you at the end of the day.
And one that we see all the time is men don't cry. I, for a while, a couple years ago, I used to be a deacon at a church. And, unfortunately, part of the deacon process is you go to a lot of funerals, whether they're your family members or not. And oftentimes what I would see is the man of the family. It could be the son, it could be the husband, it could be somebody else, trying to be strong for the family. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen men try to push the tear back into their eye, even though they're burying their grandmother, their wife, their daughter, somebody, doesn't, some loved one, but trying to hold up this vision of what I guess being a man or being masculine looks like.
Yeah.
And it's so heartbreaking that I don't think every family member says, well, this is what they're supposed to do, but that they feel that they can't let it out, right? Because this is what I'm supposed to do in this moment. And so that was the heartbreaking part. Every time I saw it, they couldn't, you can't do anything about it, right? You're feeling what you feel. You're burying your grandmother. Last thing that's going to be is, well, you're just not going to cry. You're just going to hold it together.
Yeah.
But it was always one of those things that it seems like we never let go. When kids cry because they fell, well, you got to stop, wipe yourself off, be a big boy or whatever. And those are things that we hold on. And I would say this, and my sons are going to kill me for this, so hopefully they don't see this. I have two older sons, and my two older sons are wildly different emotionally. One was a lot more logical. I used to quietly call him Spock. He was the thinker. He had emotions, but it wasn't outwardly shown. My second son was he was the more vibrant, more emotional, outwardly child. And so both of them can be hurt, but one would show it differently than the other. And if I used that logic and said, boys don't cry, it would have seemingly applied to the first one, because he's not going to cry. He doesn't cry. Well, he probably cries, but he doesn't cry a lot. My second son, if I did that, I would crush his whole personality. He's the one that gets really high and excited. He brings energy to the room. If he's excited, you're excited. You don't even know what you're excited about, but he brings that, right? And then when he gets sad, he shows his sadness. If I was to try to cut that part off, I think I would have cut the excitement part off, and he would just been mute and not shared. So I hope that we get past some of these things that's stopping us from either, one, focusing on us self-care wise, but also two, growing healthy young people, and that we're not passing along these things that, yes, they were told to us many generations ago, and it probably worked for your hardworking steel worker uncle, but those days we don't have to live in those days. We can examine them differently.
Yeah.
I wanted to, take a pause just in case somebody has joined us. We are talking about Mindful Meditations for Black Men by my good friend and guest here, Jor-El Caraballo. He has a number of other works. Self-Care for Black Men is the one that most people, at least in our store, would know. But Jor-El, you have some other things that you have done, some other works that you have printed. Before we get to the end, because every time we get to the end, we might forget something. I want to jump these in here before I get to my next question. Tell the folks what other things that you've authored, where they can find your current work, because you have some things that come out on a regular basis other than your physical media.
Absolutely. So thank you for highlighting the other things. Self-Care for Black Men is, my most popular book. It's been out for a couple of years. Um, Probably can find a good deal on it these days, so look out for that, right? Mindful Meditations for Black Men just came out this month, and I'm so grateful that it's out in the world. Just also recently released a shadow work self-reflection deck, which is a really good tool for people who are trying to gain more insight, deep insight into themselves. And it's based on my first book, which is called the Shadow Work Workbook. And so shadow work is all about this sort of like hidden self. And those two texts help you get in touch with that and spend more time with that deeper part of yourself that maybe is harder to access on a daily basis. More regularly, I write a newsletter called Coffee and Contemplation, which I low-key stole from Stranger Things now that's over, because there was a line in season 1 where Hopper was like, mornings are for coffee and contemplation. And I was like, absolutely they are. And so that's the name of my newsletter on Substack. And I publish there a couple times a month. And sort of speaking to our previous conversation point, there's a good article there called Pills and Prayers, about that connection between mental health, and spirituality and religion, that whole journey, how that's happened over time. And so many other things, but all through this lens of self-compassion and giving ourselves the time that we need to be our best and healthiest self.
Yeah. And that's all we want. I for sure would love for you to come and buy all of these books. But if you're not healthy, if you're not in good shape, you're not in good condition, if you're feeling down on yourself, feeling bad about yourself, overworking yourself, that's not helpful to anyone, especially not your family, your community, and especially not to yourself. So let's do the work. We've actually, if you are in that position where you cannot afford a book, we keep a few copies of these. I believe in it that much. We keep a few copies of these available for people to pick up for free. If you want to come in and it's just on your heart to get into it, you can come in and read it in the store. This is not a library, but for sure we want this to be a helpful, healing place. I do have one additional question. We got a comment saying, getting right all 2026. Love to see that. Mm-hmm. But we do want to see one other thing, and I want to leave this as our last conversation point. But it's about dealing with old trauma and wounds, things that are stopping us from progressing to even work on ourselves. What is your thoughts on specifically Black men? What's the work look like for trying to get past some of that old trauma and wounds in a healthy way?
Mm-hmm. I think there's so much even in your question that I think is important to pull out. So first I would say, I think it's important for Black men to acknowledge that we have wounds, that like wounds exist, they happen to us. Because sometimes even if something hard happens for us, we don't flag it as something having impact, right? We don't attach meaning to it of like, oh, that changed how I think about X, or that changed how I relate to Y, or but it's okay to be impacted by the things that happen in your life. We are impacted by things that happen in our lives. And the other thing I would say is the work of working on wounds and working on trauma isn't so much about getting through it or working past it. It's actually about integrating it, bringing it in and saying, this is just a part of my story. Here's how it's changed me, impacted my behavior, how I see myself. And I have to figure out how I move forward now that this thing has occurred. So it's about understanding that those things are just going to be part of us. And I know that's hard for a lot of people to really internalize because we want to be like, I'm good now, or like, I'm perfectly healed after going to therapy for X amount of time, or thinking about it in this way for X amount of time. And healed is a relative idea. I think about it as, how can we just be honest about the things that we've experienced and make sure that they're not negatively impacting or standing in our way? And that doesn't mean we never think about it or never feel the pain of that again. We probably will, but hopefully it can feel like less pain. It can be less disruptive, and we can come to terms with how it's impacted our life. And so when I think about wounds and how I approach that with working with people, that's what I want to communicate to people, that you don't have to get over it. You just have to get with it, carry it with you, but carry it differently so it doesn't get in the way.
Well, for sure, I can attest that the tactic doesn't work. It's burying it deep inside and never addressing it at all.
Nope, nope.
That doesn't work. The mountain you build on top will crumble at some point.
At some point, absolutely.
It will come out. But anyway, I can talk to you for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I want to do something at the end. I wish I had some physical way to do this, but I wanted to give you your flowers. You might know where I'm going with this, because you actually did something that I've never experienced in my life, and you gave me physical flowers. I actually had to go and ask my friends, because I'm thinking, I must be the only person, the last man in America that has never been given flowers that wasn't for bereavement. And I was not alone. And so for one, I would say Valentine's Day is coming up. To all those folks who are looking to do something special for the man in your life, I'm gonna put it specific, for the black man in your life, give him flowers. I'm sure he's had candy before. I'm sure he's gone out and got a steak dinner before. He may not have ever, like me, received flowers until he got some from Jor-El Caraballo. So, Jor-El, thank you for that. I want to say thank you for your spirit. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I actually did something I never do again. I marked this book up. I folded pages. I do not believe in book violence, but I'm actually, for once in this particular case, heeding the instructions in the book. You mentioned that this is not a book that you necessarily want them to just speed through and just be done with it, right? This is a book that you can carry with you. You can stop and start. You can work on some of the things that are in there, come back to it later, and I'm doing that. It was hard for me not to read the whole book, but for sure, I think there's so many things that kind of spoke to me, and I think it will for others as well. So if you're looking for a good place to start, obviously the self-care for black men is a good place to start. But tonight we're talking about being mindful, mindful meditations for black men. I would definitely suggest both. They have been excellent resources for me. I've been giving them out like they're candy, but for sure, I think it will be helpful to you. So thank you so much, Jor-El. And last but not least, I said we're always going to do it at the end, but where can they follow you, follow your work? Let's make sure we get them to know that as well.
Sure. Before I say that, because you're not going to get away with me not saying thank you, first of all, I just want to say a note about the flowers, because as part of, again, me showing up in the world as I am, I'm like, I don't know that I've gotten flowers. But I started this practice after COVID. I'm like, you know what? Flowers make me happy. And there's actually some research. I won't get into that now. It's a very good mood boost for most people, just to have flowers in the space you live in.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like powerful research. And so I want to thank you for everything that you've done for the community and what you have built and continue to build, because I think what you all are doing is extraordinary. I have so much respect and admiration for what you're doing. And I'm so grateful that we could do this. And hopefully there's just more opportunities for us to connect and collab in the future. but yeah, I for anyone who wants to keep up with me, I am strategically online on social media at Jor-El Caraballo. It just my name, no hyphen, on Instagram, Threads, most of the social sites. I don't post often because I'm really not about that life. I'm not
Right,
gonna
right.
lie to you. But if you really want to keep up with my thoughts and things, join my newsletter
There
mailing
you
list.
go.
You'll
Yep.
read more. You'll get more of my personality and all those things. And I'd love for anyone to sort of join in on a conversation there. Absolutely.
And please do that. We will drop those in the notes here. But for those of you who have been watching or will watch this in the future, thank you so much for joining us. This is Demetrius Frazier, Resist Booksellers, and we hope to have more conversations like this. But if you are looking for a book, a vinyl, candle, any of those things, please check us out at resistbooksellers.com. Come to our Resist Booksellers location here in Petersburg, Virginia. And maybe one day we'll be in Brooklyn, New York, or Queens, New York, or one of those. I'm sure I'll make my family members happy. But for sure, thank you so much for joining us and look forward to bringing chats like this to you in the future. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.